After I got married, I started thinking about death a lot. What do married men do? They have kids, they have jobs, and they die. Whoa, I'm thinking about death a lot. You ever read those self-help like, the morning makes you a man. You try something and you're on it for like 2 weeks and then it just kind of combusts and then, you're just eating Wendy's at 10 p.m. and you're like, that was not in the book. I always view what we do as there's this conversation that needs to happen. Maybe the door is jammed and people don't know how to get to the conversation. And maybe part of what I do is go, I'll hold that door.
I'm Rachel Martin, and this is Wildcard, the game where cards control the conversation. Each week, my guest chooses questions at random from a deck of cards. My guest this week is Ramy Youssef. I'm not really sure if Ramy Youssef sleeps, because this actor, writer, comedian, producer, director is doing all the things at once right now. He, of course, created the show Ramy, about a spiritually anxious Egyptian-American kid and his Muslim family, which earned him several Emmy nominations. He also co-starred in the Oscar-winning film Poor Things in 2023. His latest comedy special dropped last fall. His newest TV creation, #1 Happy Family USA, came out in April. And soon, he will share the screen with Steve Carell in the new movie Mountainhead. I am so happy to welcome Ramy Youssef to Wildcard.
Hey, thank you for having me.
I'm so glad to talk to you. You're going to tell me that you sleep like 10 to 12 hours a night now, right? Like you're actually really good at sleeping?
You actually really pointed out this flaw issue with sleep. I was just on the way over here. I was talking to a friend. I said, "Dude, our immune systems are compromised. We have to somehow try to hit 7 hours." How much do you sleep?
Oh, dude, we could talk for so long about this. I had a job where I was in perpetual sleep deprivation for 6 years. And it is the worst. It is the worst. I'm still recovering, to be honest.
Right.
I'm good on like 7 to 8 now.
That's amazing. I want to sleep, and I keep figuring out there's like magnesium and stuff.
Yeah.
I look up all this stuff online, and there was a video of this woman saying you need to rub magnesium on your feet before you go to bed.
Mainline it into the feet. Okay.
Mainline it into the bottom of the foot. So now I'm that's how seriously I'm taking what you're saying.
I've tried everything except that. So now I'm gonna go home.
Can I tell you? I'm a couple weeks in.
Is it making a difference?
Yeah, your socks get a little slippery the next day.
Yeah.
Because there's still a little bit of magnesium residue. Uh-huh. So there's a sock factor.
Yeah, okay. I'll take that into account.
I need to have my own magnesium to sell after I make a comment like that.
That's right. You need to be prepared. You got to back it up.
Like ancient Egyptian magnesium or something, put a little branding on it. Like like I start like going to camera and it's like, I looked into my ancestors and they were using magnesium. That's why this jar should be $60.
First 3 cards. 1, 2, or 3?
1.
1. What was your form of rebelling as a teenager?
I think I was a very bad student. I couldn't focus. I couldn't stay in class, but I also didn't want to hurt my parents and upset them because education did mean a lot to them, to my family. So I'll try to figure out a way where I wouldn't have to do what I was supposed to be doing. So it was kind of a creative rebellion. So I actually, there was a TV program in my high school and I would get out of other classes saying, "Oh, guys, I have to do this thing for TV," because they kind of let us do citizen, student journalism.
Got it.
So I'd go, "Oh, I got to go cover this thing for TV." And I would, but I'd create all these things that had to get covered, and then I'd end up missing pretty key classes a lot. And then me and my buddy Steve Way, who I work with a lot, and we've known each other since we were so he has muscular dystrophy. He's in a wheelchair. So he would be doing the TV stuff with me. Half the time we'd be like, we're doing the TV stuff. The other half would be like, "Oh, I got to help Steve with something." Because he would just be like, "Just tell them we have to do some." He literally would say, "Tell them we got to do disabled stuff." And then I would just be like, "Hey, we got to do disabled stuff." And then they go, "Oh my God, of course, you're with Steve." And then we just go get pizza. We're not, which is disabled stuff because he can't eat the pizza on his own, and he wanted pizza.
Right.
So we were basically always inventing ways to never have to be where we had to be. And then I think we thought one day we would just grow up and we wouldn't be able to rebel like that. And then and it's just kind of still what we're doing.
Steve is awesome. Your friendship is portrayed in Ramy, and I love that it's like a real thing. It's like just your life, just the two of you.
You said rebellion. I was like, I didn't I didn't party or do that wasn't what I did. It was it was that, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
Three more cards. 1, 2, 3. You pick 3. Was there a moment when you started seeing your parents as people?
Wow. Yeah. What was the moment? I think it started probably when when I saw my grandfather, my father's father, pass. That's when it really hit me. Oh yeah, he's a son like I am.
Right.
Because I was watching him. My dad shifted into a whole different role after his father passed. Because, I think it's that thing of, well, yeah, now that in my life I am the elder, But I saw my dad go through that, and I remember thinking, oh, whoa, he's a son like I am.
Yeah.
And he was a kid. And I think I knew these things, but there was something about that moment where I really felt it. And everything was kind of different after that, And so that really hit me. And then I started to see everything that they were dealing with us with a whole different kind of compassion. Even if I felt, like all kids do, that, why do I have any guardrails, or why are you, telling me, you could have all those frustrations, but I really did understand it, through a different lens.
If you have a relationship where you put your parents on a pedestal, I did to some degree, and then you see them emote like a human, they're not, and in that as a vulnerability, does that, I don't know, was there a grief associated for yourself of seeing your dad, not lose stature, but just become vulnerable that way to you?
It was vulnerable is the perfect word, because there was no stature loss. If anything, I almost feel like I loved him and my mother even more.
Yeah.
When you're a kid, you kind of, if you're lucky, death as a concept, but you don't have to know it too intimately. Mm-hmm. And then when you start to know it, you start to feel, oh wow, well I really want to love as much as I can while I can.
Yeah.
So there's no stature loss. If anything, there was even cherishing more, because you don't want to have the thought, but algebraically you go, okay, then I'll lose him at some point.
Yeah.
That was really, oh yeah, these are people.
Yeah. I hadn't thought about this in a long time, but it was the same. I was in my mom's closet. It was after her dad died, her last parent. And yeah, same. It's just her overwhelming grief. I was almost caught off by it. I was like, whoa, this is a lot.
Yeah.
But it was the same for me. Like seeing my mom be vulnerable in that way was totally connected to losing her dad.
Yeah. I'll tell you something though, like a really interesting memory too with that, because we had really petitioned my parents so that we could get a dog. It was this really like big thing, and my mom was afraid of dogs even, and my dad was like, no, but then we got them to get us one. And there was something interesting because my grandfather who passed was in Egypt, and the night before we found out that he had passed, the dog was howling and crying all night, right? So it was really interesting because it was like my father was with the dog and we were in Egypt, and my dad was like, oh no, I like it, somehow the dog, all I know is my dad fell in love with that dog afterwards, because he was like, the dog picked up on what happened, whether he picked up on it through me or knew something was going on. And it became this whole thing. And then now my parents are huge dog people.
Animals are truth tellers.
Yeah, for real.
Before we start round 2, I'm going to pull back a little bit from the game and talk about, first, your new movie, Mountainhead. This is created by Jesse Armstrong, who also made Succession. It's about these, titans of tech in Silicon Valley. They're squirreled away in this mountain resort in Utah, just having like a bro weekend. And then chaos ensues around the world. You read this thing, and what was your reaction?
I was just really excited to talk about something that personally haunts me. Just this idea of where is this tech going? What are these power dynamics that we're in? It's almost algebraic at a certain point. This is what it looks like when, for a long time, we've had this dynamic of power versus people, and then now entering the conversation is the tech.
Yeah.
And in a way, what we start to understand in this story is just, that has a mind of its own.
Yeah.
And what is that going to do?
Yeah. You create a lot of stuff. Like, you're mainly like the creator guy, the writer, the producer, the director of things. What's it like to just drop into someone else's project where you're not responsible for the whole kit and caboodle, and you just come in and you've got like your role and you just do that and walk out?
You know what it was? I slept more.
Good.
I was hitting my 7.
That, then.
I was hitting my 7, so I loved it. I was go to bed, I tuck in. I don't have to think about lighting. I don't got to look at a costume. I got my one little jacket that I put on. I show up, I got my coffee. These guys have been there for 2 hours. I know about that life, and I'm like, hope you guys are doing okay. I'm doing great.
The scenes where Steve Carell is yelling at you, it made me so sad on your behalf to be yelled at by Steve Carell. Were you sad? I feel like you weren't acting. I feel like your face was just like, oh my God, Steve Carell is yelling at me. He's ripping me a new one, and I am so sad. Because that guy's nice.
Testament then to my acting, because I was not sad, but Jeff was. So shout out me, because God, Steve Carell is the coolest dude.
He's the nicest.
He shows up to this job and he's just as excited as all of us. He's just as curious as all of us. We're all pouring through the script going, ooh, what about this? What about that? And I'm looking at this guy and I'm like, how does it feel like this is like his first job, in the best ways, right? Yeah. He obviously knows what he's doing, but he has that thing. And so I learned so much, I just learned so much about how to be being around him. Anytime you could like learn how to be as a person from someone in the creative process, because the creative process isn't always known for, shining kindness personalities of how to be. It's never quite a roadmap on how to actually act. It's just about how to act. It's about how to act, not how to actually act, just how to do the acting that happens on screen. Yeah. But no, him, you go, oh wow, I want to act like him in real life.
Yeah. So I wanted to say congrats on #1 Happy Family USA.
Thank you.
Which is so funny. And a lot of it parallels Ramy about just your own life experience, living life as part of a Muslim American family. And this show in particular, it's about right after 9/11. So it's got a particular point of view. What does animation let you do with that story that you couldn't do in a live action situation?
The central idea that made me want to do an animated show was thinking about how this family in this time with really heightened bigotry and Islamophobia at the time, somewhat like now's time, but they kind of make this calculation that they need to really display their patriotism to the neighborhood and to the world in a way that they haven't before. And they want to kind of strip themselves of everything that they are and how they look. Mm-hmm. And so they literally look different when they're in the house and when they're outside the house. Yeah. So I got very fascinated by this code switch where I said, okay, this is an animated idea. You watch the father's beard disappear as he walks through the doorway. You watch them do whatever they can in order to conform. And I think that became this entry point I was fascinated about, because I think everybody does that. Yeah. Everybody goes, there's something about who I am when I'm home that is not good enough or that is not right or that needs to be hidden when I'm with other people. So I started to feel, okay, now this show could be for everybody. But now we're going to do it in this way that covers this era that has never really had a varied artistic point of view. And we have an opportunity to do that.
Yeah. Last question. I have a Palestinian-American friend who happens to work in conflict resolution in the Middle East. Sort of busy.
Yeah.
And he's a big fan. And I said, if you could ask him anything, what would you ask him? And so this is Nassim's question. He thinks that the work that you're doing in centering Arab American and Muslim American stories really is the most important work. It has such a huge impact on how Americans in particular view Muslim Americans. Do you get that? And does that ever feel like a burden to you?
I always view what we do as there's this conversation that needs to happen. Maybe the door is jammed and people don't know how to get to the conversation. And maybe part of what I do is go, oh, I'll hold that door, But to me, it's like I feel like I'm just holding the door for Nassim and the work that he's doing, And so that can be helpful, but I don't know if what I do is actually the work because at the end of the day, it's fart jokes and sex jokes and food jokes.
But that's part of being people, right? Like,
of course, no, I know, and we've been so, dehumanized that I got to tell you, we fart and we have sex.
Right.
That sucks.
Yeah.
I grew up in that.
Right.
It's kind of a dumb position to have to even take on a level, and that's why I kind of go out of my way to say, well, you know what? I'm going to make this as weird as possible because I want it to be exciting for me. Like, I'm not trying to audition anything or display anything. So in a way, sometimes my work, especially, if you watch stuff we've done on Ramy and stuff we've done on Number One Happy Family USA, that work tends to skew to just my sensibilities, which go weirder beyond this like role of representing. And so what I'll sometimes get is people being like, dude, did it have to be that weird, man? We're trying to show people who we are. And I'm like, no, I'm not trying to show anyone anything. I am trying to do the thing that entertains me. I don't view it with the density of it'll be a solution or it'll do anything like that because that would make it impossible to create. And I also, I whatever Nassim thinks about me, I think about him more. I think that's the work.
Yeah.
I think that's the work.
1, 2, or 3?
3.
3. In moments of conflict, do you step in or step back?
I definitely step in. And I think I step in a variety of ways. I either can step in wanting to provide solutions and kind of say, okay, which to a fault, right? I mean, almost sidestepping why the conflict happened in order to look at the solution and skipping the part where the feeling acknowledgement happens. This is something I'm learning in my marriage.
That's right. Sometimes you just need to listen. And there is no, I know.
I should step back more. I jump right in.
Do you think you could give me an example of when you stepped in?
Look, I show run shows.
Yeah.
So I think there it's really quite simply like you have all sorts of different departments and you have all sorts of different things going on. You have to make really direct phone calls. You have to get people in the room. You have to kind of get to the core of what's going on and you have to do it really fast because you're shooting in 4 hours or you're on set or whatever it might be. So I mean, I think on that level, it's just always happening.
So you must get reinforced positively for this, though, too, because you're good at it.
For sure.
You have to be. So then I imagine you can apply it. You're like, well, I'm good at
and then it's
I'm fixing this stuff. So who's got a
Oh,
problem?
my God. Yeah, and then you kind of and then you try to do the same thing with, like, your parents or with your, and it's just like no one wants to hear it. You know what I mean? Everyone's like, shut up, dude. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not trying to deal with it. You know what I mean? Like my mom was like, oh, yeah, I should exercise more or whatever. And I call her and I'm like, I bought you a yoga monthly membership. And she's like, I don't want that. And I'm like, but I already paid for the month. And she goes, sucks for you. And now I'm just on the hook for this yoga thing, at least for a month. And then, of course, I forget to cancel it. And so now I pay for the yoga for like 6 months, you know, and then it's just like, what the hell is going on? You know, I tried to solve this thing and now I'm making this yoga studio rich.
I feel like you should have found a way to take advantage of the yoga thing for yourself.
No, these people owe me money. They should have called. I mean, shouldn't the studio call and be like, hey, your mom's not showing up. You shouldn't have to like, especially yoga. It's like this integrity practice. They like breathe and supposedly care about people. Are you guys not like going to call me and just say you're passively billing me?
No, they're not.
Like
they're
you don't
not.
have like a chakra that tells you that she's not showing up.
It's a business.
I'll pick number one.
You'll pick number one. Has ambition ever led you astray?
Yeah. Of course. I mean, it becomes about like the physical stuff. It's like you know, there's just I'll get so into a creative idea and whatever it takes to make it happen that I like, genuinely forget my body. Whether it's, and I've had both. I've had forgetting to eat or I've had overeating. Mm-hmm. Then you're just so tired and you're so exhausted. And it's the thing we were...
Sleep.
This thing we were talking about. And then when I'm not sleeping, I'm like, yeah, you're never anywhere really if you're in that. It's like, yeah, I'm here at work, but it's like, am I really? There's that fog. Yeah. It's like the physical stuff and the and that
and relationships.
You just start to feel like, oh,
you did
man.
get married not that long ago, right?
Yeah. But then you start to think like, oh wow, you know, you want to spend more time with people who you love, and then you start to kind of say, okay, now I gotta like whatever I was, you know, when I was a kid. I guess I can say this now, you know, being 21, 22, and you're doing stand-up, you run around, you get up anywhere that they'll give you a microphone. You go to, you know, a restaurant. I used to live around the corner from a vintage shop, and I walked into the vintage shop and I go, you can do stand-up here. And then before you know it, we're doing a weekly show in the middle of the clothing racks. You know, anywhere. You do 4 spots a night. You just run around in your car. You time out the night, and that's all you're doing. And then now at this age, I'm married, and I want to spend more time with my wife, with my parents, with, you know, then you start to go, yeah, that's not, I'd love to get up and do stand-up. It's so amazing to be in front of a crowd and have hundreds of people just laugh at you immediately. But you go, no, I'm not going to do that. You know, I can't.
Yeah. Okay, last round, beliefs. 1, 2, or 3?
1.
Have you ever tried to force a belief?
Yeah, I mean, I've tried to force. I think I've tried to force like that like a regular schedule will work for me. You know, like I've read all those things about routine and habit, and for many years I've really tried to force this idea that I got to do the same thing every day, even though there's nothing about how my life is designed that would actually allow that. And only recently I've started to make peace that there are probably certain things I have to do every day, but it'll never happen at the same time, and it'll never. So I tried to do that whole like, you ever read those self-help like. The morning makes you a man or whatever. Like any of these books that are like,
man
wake
version,
up.
But yes.
So I was going through this whole like, you try something and you're on it for like 2 weeks and then it just kind of combusts, and then, you know, you're just eating Wendy's at 10 p.m. and you're like, that was not in the book, you know? And I've only recently started to kind of say, you know what, man, I don't know. I know the things I got to do, and they might happen at the same time. They might not. I just always felt like it's like there's like a structure that's evading me or something. And now I'm saying, no, what if it's just let me just be with however it is and try to be okay with that.
That's right.
Yeah, and be okay with that.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
2 more cards. 1, 2, 3.
3.
Have you made peace with mortality?
More than ever.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. There's just really, one of my favorite Sufi concepts is to die before you die.
What does that mean?
Which is to be at peace with the fact that you will, which is to actually have that inner feeling of you've tamed your ego to the point that you've actually, this is an incredibly hard thing to do, but you actually kill your ego while you're still alive.
Mm-hmm.
That's very aspirational in a way that I'm, super attracted to. So I think in many ways, actually just a couple of weeks ago, we buried my grandfather.
I'm sorry.
And he was the last grandparent that we had. And so, it's like, it's just that inevitable thing where you just feel that thing. It's like, not only is he gone, but everyone just kind of moves up a slot. You know what I mean? In like what you think is going to, in like, because these things are unpredictable. I mean, it's like, no one has an actual clock on when it'll happen, but looking at patterns, everyone kind of moves up a slot. And then you go, oh, wow, okay. Like I did have this weird thing, like after I got married, I started thinking about death a lot because I went, and I know it sounds funny or it sounds like I'm in this, like it's like a bad thing, but it was more just a really logical thing because I was like, I just did this really adult thing.
Yeah.
I cannot tell myself that I'm just this like kid on the come up anymore.
Totally.
I'm a married man. Well, what do married men do? They have kids, they have jobs, and they die. Whoa, I'm thinking about death a lot, But it was really beautiful because it there's nothing more real, and so I love it.
Yeah.
I have an uncle who, he's very involved in the Muslim community, and if anybody dies, it's not even anyone that he knows. He goes and he's like, "Hey, you guys need help? Can I come just do the prayer for the?" Because he's like, he likes that reality check, and he likes to be in a room with people who are in a very real state of mind.
Oh, yeah.
Because when you talk to people at a funeral, it's like,
Oh, yeah.
That's a good convo. Because everyone's, it could be a very sad one. But if you can have like a good conversation,
Spiritually
you go, oh, whoa,
heightened.
Oh, yeah. You don't need shrooms. You're getting right
there.
to the core of everything,
Totally.
And I think that's really interesting.
What do you think happens after you die?
A lot.
Do you?
I think, oh, yeah. I think
I've been on a string of conversations with people who are just like, nothing happens. It's the end.
This is just the beginning.
Ooh.
Right now is just the beginning. I think a lot happens. I think if this is the end, then I actually don't know how anyone can live with how much suffering and how much inequality that there is. To me, the more I live, it feels like the only thing that makes sense.
Can I push you gently on that? Like, do you actually think that...
Push me even more.
Do you actually think consciousness will exist beyond your physical form? Like when you say it's
Absolutely.
you do.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Like not as like the tech bro freezing your consciousness and tapping it into like some matrix. You believe
No,
that
and I mean I think that's the hilarity too of like the longevity movement. And it's kind of because we're in such a we're so trapped by only believing in like what we can see. But I think that the basis of any spiritual tradition that lives on earth, however you want to call it, the inner eye, God, however people, I obviously connect to it as a Muslim, but that consciousness is always about what you can't see. And that is only going to continue beyond this, And so, and you feel, I feel it. I feel it with family who's passed, and I feel it, all the time. These relationships continue.
You actually feel them. Because I do. I definitely have had that experience.
Yeah,
but I can hear people listening to this being like, but what? But what is he talking about? Like where?
It's a thing we were talking about earlier where it's like, like why was our dog crying? Why do you know things right before you know them? And then everyone's like, oh, this is a little coincidence. And that's fine. If that's the level you want to tap into it, You know what I mean? So some people will hear like a good song and they'll go, that's a good song, I like it. Some people will go, why do I like that song? And they'll really get into it. They'll go, well, it's because of the bass line. This guy studied piano over here. They're using these acoustics. It's the same thing. So you have all these frequencies of things that are happening. Most people like to go, a little coincidence. And then they just go to the deli and get a sandwich. But if you really kind of look into it, you go, no, there's an unseen, there's a science to it. There's all these things that are there. And there are so many people on earth who are really tapped into these things. And what's awesome about that whole conversation is they still don't know, but they know a lot. But no one here really knows. And I think that to me is almost the most unifying thing that we have as humans, is that there's this whole other thing that we actually don't know yet. So we're all in this like unknowing together. And I think that should create a lot of mercy, actually.
That was interesting. Do you think that there's a divinity, some divine power involved in all this?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Why, of course?
It's like, come on. Yeah, of course. I don't, I think like man in the sky or whatever is not the framework, right? I think it's beyond, what we can really understand. I have this like gripe with Santa Claus because, growing up in America, because you know what it is? It's like kids grow up believing in Santa Claus, like that this guy could come down the chimney and it's, so Santa Claus is actually presented to a child is this like metaphysical proposition that, hey, there is something out there that can break the rules of metaphysics and give you this gift of exactly what you want. And it's really hyped up. And then one day, hey, just so you know, none of that's true. So the idea of a metaphysical framework is shattered, right, for an entire generation because Santa Claus ruined this kind of transcendence. Because everyone's just like, nah, that stuff's not real. Like God. I remember the Santa Claus lie. Right. You know what I mean? So it's like, but let's just say you put that aside and you actually just realize that there is something going on that you will not grasp in its entirety. But if you get quiet, you're going to pick up on way more than if you're kind of in this like fractured, distracted place.
Dude, that Santa Claus thing hit me deep. We did Santa Claus, and now I'm like, I just killed my children's sense of mystery in the universe and their ability to think outside of time and place and connect to a higher being.
He holds too much power. And he has nothing to do with Christianity even, right?
Know.
So don't get me wrong. I would never knock Christianity.
There's so much pressure.
It's an industry.
The Christian lady say to the Muslim kid.
Hey,
yeah.
Listen, and this is the thing.
Santa.
But I think by the way, I'll take Muslim pressure over Santa pressure.
Yeah. I mean.
Muslim pressure, we're just,
That's saying something.
That's just some real grit.
Last question. 1, 2, or 3.
I'll do 1.
What truth guides your life more than any other?
Love. Like that actually love is at the core of everything. Yeah. It is the most important. It's the most important thing. Everything leads back to it, Every good thing leads to it, and every bad thing is a lack of it. And I think that's it always that one word always helps me reconnect. We talked so much about exhaustion. This conversation, anytime I'm trying to get out of that, if I can actually focus on that word, I can repair at least a bit. It's not like, oh, love, hey, like suddenly, but I'm always thinking like about small bits of repair of whatever it is. And that is always the thing that helps me do that. And it is the most important thing. And it is it's the top feeling, I think it is it's the top feeling. Yeah.
We end the show the same way every time. You revisit one moment from your past. It is not a moment you would change anything about. It's just a moment you would like to linger in a little longer. Which moment do you choose?
This is such a great question. I've never thought about this. There's this photograph that I have. It's an old family photograph when my sister and I were younger. And so my grandfather grew up in this this village, outside of Cairo. And it's really what you think of when you think of a village. I mean, they're making food over a fire, and there's wells, and there's kind of these really kind of rough. It's a rough town in terms of how things are built, but in a way, incredibly genius. Like they have exactly what they need, But it's a pure village, and there's this photo of me and my sister, my mom and dad, and just that entire section of the family, and we're like out in the sun, and it's this old film photo that I look at, and it would be cool to just do that day. Just go do that day as a kid consciously and just sit in all of that wisdom with all those people, with all of those, ways of, they're like making fresh meat and they're taking the wheat and they're making, everything is so like by hand when I think back on that, and none of those people are around now, and I think that would be a great use of the machine, that and like the first time I watched The Sopranos, like I think would also be like that first. Like I remember just being like, "Whoa, The Sopranos is the best show ever," right? So I think that would also. Like it would be that, and then on the way back.
On the way back,
because I imagine the machine.
Pit stop.
I imagine the machine kind of like does like a quick little, brrr, and I go to catch just like the first time you're like, oh my god, James Gandolfini, Whoa.
Ramy Youssef, this has been so fun. Thank you for doing this.
This is so great. Thank you so much.
You can see Ramy Youssef in Mountainhead, which comes out May 31st. #1 Happy Family USA is out now.